I'm Anton Blackwood.
I'm Michelle Betos.
I'm Ak Lakhani.
This is Between the Posts.
I am Michelle Betos. I coach the goalkeepers and do a little work on the culture side.
Hi, I'm Ak Lakhani. I'm an assistant coach, and my main focus with the group this year has been a bit more on the defensive side, as well as doing a little bit of recruitment as well.
Hi, I'm Anton Blackwood. My job title here at Gotham is Head of Player Development. So essentially I take care of all of the player development plans, IDP work on the pitch, and essentially just trying to help the players just develop as individuals.
Why do I coach? Number of reasons. Two of the main reasons, it involves two things I love, which is football, or soccer as you guys call it over here, and people. I love working with people. Every day is different as well, which is really fun, and just showing my passion for the game and helping develop top athletes as well as aspiring professionals as well. So, and I get to work with amazing staff, so that's pretty sick.
I had a failed playing career, so I stopped quite young. I had a few injuries, which is everyone's excuse, but I always enjoyed about football was more helping. So I was a defender, so I liked the communicating and helping players, and with younger players trying to mentor and see things that they can get better at. So I think it was quite natural for me. And I was fortunate where my old club, when I didn't get another contract, they invited me back in, and I kind of fell into it from there. So yeah, I would definitely say I enjoy coaching more than playing, because you can affect others. And I'm someone that I think I've always been quite selfless, and I've always kind of put myself last to try and help others. So I think it makes perfect sense for me.
Yeah, I think for me, it's just that obviously I love the game. I just finished my playing career, and I think for me, it was I've just had so many coaches invest in me that changed my life. You know, obviously gave me the opportunities I had in the game, but also just grew me as a person. I think this game is so fun, and it's something to pursue, but it's also something that if you want to push yourself and get to the highest levels, you have to find another version of yourself. And so for me, kind of similar to Ak and you, it's how do we develop people to find the best version of themselves? And it's through a game, and it's a game we all love, but I also think it's so much bigger than that. And the game and the people in it have given me so much. So for me, it's just wanting to give that back and wanting to play that role in others' lives.
Obviously, I didn't advance as far as these guys with my playing, but I ended up playing at a decent level when I was young, didn't quite work, went to university, played there, and I got hurt in my final year, and I was one of the captains of the team. So because I was, rather than being miserable sitting in my dorm room, the guy who was the head coach was my friend, so he's like, just come along. And I was like, actually, it's not too bad, you know, and then started supporting those guys, and it just became fun, and I was like, okay, this is actually decent. And then I looked a bit more further into it as I finished my degree and got a job at Tottenham, and I was like, oh, I could actually make a career out of this, and then it just kind of flowed from there. So big thing for me is there's so many different parts of this game that you can actually be involved with, and one of my main first roles in the game was actually developing in the community, and I was like, oh wow, you can actually make a difference in people's lives. It's not just a sport that you just, you know what I mean, that you can play with your mates as well. But yeah, a big part of it was how can I use this as a platform to support others, which was a big okay, this is pretty cool. And then eventually I've taken every step as it comes and ended up here.
First and foremost, I love football, and it's everything I knew from a young age. And I wouldn't say I wasn't the most academic, but I didn't really like school. So I went to school to play football in the playground. And when I realized there was a chance of me becoming a footballer when I left school, but the condition was I had to get certain grades, all of a sudden I started to push myself, and I was revising and doing everything possible to get the grades required to be able to take the opportunity. So I would say football taught me a lot, that you can do anything possible if you put your mind to it. And I think when the opportunities to continue in football wasn't there, I think it was just a natural next step. And I was in a position where I wouldn't say I was desperate, but for the game, I would have taken any job. So whether that would have been, and obviously, Ak, you know me, where I've worked across almost every department at our last club, Tottenham, but it's just being around the football club and going, even if when I was working on more the commercial business side, my office was in the stadium, and that makes a big thing for me. And then when I came back to the football side, and you're looking out the window and you're seeing the grass pitch. Like, for me, it's everything. So I feel like I can't really picture my life without the game, and being able to, like, with that, affect other people. And like, my role is development. So being able to develop players, and that's like we always say, like, we get players good and then they either move on or we move on. But that gives me a lot of pride, because when we look back at players we've worked with and you see, like, this player's playing in the national team, or this player's got this contract and this player's now making senior appearances, like, it fills me with a lot of pride.
I've always, since I was a kid, I've played soccer and played sports because I was part of something bigger than myself, right? Like, I think you have this individual pursuit and you go after your goals and, you grow and you learn, but you're also doing it with other people. And I think that's just something so special, having something in mind, having 25 friends wherever you go. I think for me, it's just about doing something bigger than myself with other people and striving towards one goal, and the relationships and, like you said, investing in others, finding the best version of yourselves and inspiring others to do the same. I think, in a lot of ways, I think it was what I was meant to do. I would say that, about most of our staff, it's kind of our expression of ourselves and us making an impact on the world is the game. I think the biggest thing for me in sport is it's really, and I think if we're doing our jobs well, it's really about taking the person as they are and finding the best version of them, and I think the beauty of soccer is every shape, size, can play. I played basketball growing up, and it's, oh, you're too short or you're too this. And it's like, I just find in general sports, sometimes we limit people too much. And I think soccer is a beautiful sport because it's any type of person can play. And if you can play, you can play. And if you want to play, then we're going to work with you to do that, So I don't really think it's ever about what somebody looks like. I think it's about how they show up every day, what their baseline strengths are, and how do we maximize those. And that's going to be different for each person. I think that's why it's beautiful. We wouldn't want 11 players that look the same and move the same and act the same. Soccer is kind of this fine balance and dance of different personalities, different strengths, different levels of athleticism, and different versions of it. So yeah, for me, it's really not something that needs to be considered in the game. I think it's whoever you are, how do we make you the best you can be and love the game and enjoy it and perform well?
Yeah, I agree. I think, like, there's no evidence that suggests that how you look is going to make you a better or worse player. So I think the main thing for me is, like, who is the person? What are they good at? What are their strengths? How can you make that even better? And then in terms of, like, working at areas that actually make them a better player and a better person, that's what you focus on. So if, like, as an example, a player needs to work on their technical attributes, that will be the focus. So, like, I shy away from, like, anything like how someone looks, because it's like, for me, it's not important. So it's not something that I talk about. And it's like, I have daughters myself, and what I say to them is, like, who are you as a person? And it's like, I'm more disappointed in them if they act in a way that is away from how I've tried to raise them as a human, like manners and respect and stuff like that. So that's what's important. And because I'm always focused about, okay, how did you behave? Have you done your homework? How have you treated people? Like, and like I said offline, it's like, when I drop them to school, I give them affirmations, because it's like self-talk to, like, really boost themselves and be confident, be kind, be resilient, all of these things. So I think, like, in the long way of answering is, like I said, how someone looks is just, for me, it's irrelevant. It's like how they are as a person, how they perform, and how they affect others. I think for me, that's the most important things.
Just again, like, I mean, these are fantastic answers, but I think a big part of what we try and strive to at Gotham is just allowing people just to be themselves. I think that's a big part of why I love working here. You work on a pitch with fantastic athletes who every single one of them, whether they're a rookie or they're a 10-year pro, that they're all bringing something to the table. So I think for us, and for me in particular, what I try and push is find those special traits that you bring and really, really run with it, and we'll obviously support and help however we can. But a key thing for these players and these staff is having this safe environment where they can actually be themselves and really push on. And I think that's something that I've loved my 3 years being here, and I think it's something that we all really push for, right? With everything we try and do, we try and allow people to have that safe spot. a lot of the stuff when I do like individuals or IDP stuff, I try to do multi-action circumstances in the practices. So yeah, they may not execute the first one, but there's always something next that they've got to react to, or next focus, next one, next focus. And I think those, even when we play in small side, if someone may miss a shot, we're like, no, next one, you got this. And I think just really assuring them that, don't worry, it's all right. You're a human being, you're going to make mistakes, but just keep pushing through, you know, and no one on this planet is perfect, you know. So we've all either made a mistake, which for me, I don't really like even calling them mistakes. It's areas where you find out where you can learn and then evolve and push on. So little conversations after, like, okay, so this is what I'm seeing, but how do you feel? So they can actually like communicate that with us as well. So that was something that is a method that I try and use here, but there's a bunch of ways that we really try and push it.
Yeah, I think for me, especially with the goalkeepers, you know, I think something I recognized as a player is when coaches celebrate something, we're more likely to repeat it. And so and with the goalkeepers, I mean, you know, the goalkeepers talked about it, Shelby talked about it. Like in my career, the moments I regret the most are not when I've made mistakes, but when I've let mistakes affect my next action. And so for when I'm working with them, I will celebrate them moving on to the next play, their next positive action after a failure or a mistake or whatever you want to call it, more than a top class save, because that is mental resilience and that is what is going to take them to the top. You know, especially, you know, at our level, everyone is talented. Everyone is bringing a level of talent that is the 1% in the world. So it is going to be the mindset and the mental resilience that sets you apart. So how quickly can you show up for your next action is what we celebrate, you know, and I think by celebrating those things, they start to recognize, okay, that's our area of focus. And that's something I can control. You know, you can't control making mistakes sometimes. And especially we're pushing them out of their comfort zone. So if they're not making mistakes, we're doing something wrong. So mistakes are part of it, mistakes are part of growth, but it's also celebrating, hey, how quick can you come back? How quick can you come back to this next present moment? Because that's where success is. That's where anything worth anything is.
It's going to be hard to follow up on that, but it's something I think you said yesterday, Mish, about at the start of the season about high stretch, high support. I was actually thinking about when I went home, and I feel like I'm someone that is like high support because at the end of the day, the players, to get to this stage, the percentages are against them. So they've like all defied the odds. So like when you think about that, they're doing something that maybe they didn't even think that was possible. So, and because they did things like probably when they were younger, and probably the same for you, Mish, of like just showing up and just trying, and that builds your resilience without you even realizing that all of a sudden, now you're a professional player. And like, and then it stems into life, because like life is tough, like that's the reality. But I find like players that get to this stage and to this level, they have that resilience because they've had to go through like so much hardships, like being cut from a team and then having to bounce back and go again, like maybe as a forward player missing a big chance and then having to be thrown back in. So I just try to encourage them, because naturally the game, it makes you tough. It makes you, like we say in England, like very like thick-skinned, where you can like deal with the criticism of social media and stuff like that. So like I just tend just to support them because they're already like doing the impossible. So like if we can just support them and encourage them, then naturally they will just keep doing what they've already done. So like that's just my kind of thing. Like and we've got incredible people here. Like we're fortunate, and I believe the players are fortunate because there's like incredible staff members here, and we've got like a very diverse group of skill sets, people from different walks of life. And when you bring that all together, like the players get everything that they need and want. So yeah, like just yeah, that's it, just helping them and supporting. So yeah, that's the main. There's times where maybe we have to be like a bit firmer in certain scenarios to set standards, but again, they appreciate that. So I feel like we have a good ethos around like how we can like make the players like be able to cope like mentally.
Just touching on that last bit, and I think as well, as long as it's constructive and it's honest, I think that's where you get your buy-in, because ultimately it's our job to help, you know, and support those and drive those standards, and not just for them, but them as a team, us as a club. That's how we evolve, and we also want that feedback from them too. So I think the fact that we make it a two-way street is key.
How many players play free? Like that's my thing. Like, you know, when you're starting out and you're a kid And in England, like playing in the playground, like I don't know what the same here is in the States, but when you're playing in the playground or playing in the cage, you just play free and you just try things. And like you're losing. Like one of the coaches, Sean Harris, like I joke with him all the time, but it's like Sean's at his best version when he's a goal down, because all of a sudden it's like we're losing, so I might as well give things a go. And it's like that's what I try to say to the players of like, until you push yourself, you don't know what's like possible. And they're all different. Like so, how Anne is versus Jess versus like Rose versus it's all different, and that's what I kind of like enjoy, that they all have good mentalities, but there's like loads of difference. Today with Mish of like what makes her tick a little bit, and I won't say on camera, but like she made an outstanding save, because in her mind she was like, something is not happening, like I'm not being scored on, and now like I'm like, Mish, you're ready to come out of retirement again. But it's just individuals, like it's just amazing to be in this environment and you see these things and you're like, wow, like that's incredible.
I would say for me, one of the biggest things is like this game is about joy. At the highest levels, this game is about joy. And I think similar to what you were just saying, like when you're in joy and you're playing free, you're going to be your best, no matter the personality, you know, like, and so I think figure out how much joy you're providing them. You know, are you too structured? Are you taking away some of the freedom that comes with the game? And I think that can really take away from the experience. And I think a big thing for me too is just being really intentional about the language you use, the way you speak to them. You know, being a coach is actually a real big honor and privilege, and you have the potential for immense impact, especially on younger girls. You know, when I was a kid, I wasn't listening to my parents, I was listening to my coach. You know, so my parents used to try to have my coach tell me to clean my room because I would listen to them, but I wouldn't listen to my parents, you know? So I think really recognizing the platform you have and the potential for impact, and not taking that lightly, being really intentional about that. And yeah, my thing is always going to be leaning to their strengths, lean into their values. What do they value? What do they love about the game? And can you provide that more? Can you help facilitate that in a way, or, you know, spark that joy in them? Because I think the game has so much to give, and if they're not enjoying it, then we probably do need to reflect.
No, I agree 100%. And I feel like I always say to like any coach, it doesn't matter of the age, like less of us and more of them, because sometimes it's too much about us, and it's like, because we're so like competitive to want to be better and want to advance, like sometimes we're doing more for us, and then you think, okay, but how did that benefit the player? And like, so I feel like taking a second and a moment to think about what do the players actually need, and then how can you help them to achieve that? And as well, like for younger coaches, like make it appropriate. Like young coaches working with younger players, make it appropriate. So if you're coaching under 10s, your focus should be on being the best under 10s coach in the country. And then with that, if you actually start focusing on that, you'll think less about playing a low block and tactics, and you'll think more about, okay, can they just enjoy themselves? Can they just have joy? So that'll be my thing of like, try and make it about the players and be very appropriate. And again, when I was working with young players of like, number one, can you be approachable? Because like these players are coming into our arenas and our environments and they've got so much on their minds. Just be approachable, where they can come to you and say, hey coach, when I did this, what could I have done better? Can I get feedback? And then all of a sudden they will start to relax and then move towards that joy. So yeah, those will be like my advice, but I'm still learning and figuring out. So that's where I'm very like conscious of giving advice, because I'm still on that journey. So those are things that like I would say, and I'm going to continue to take that advice as well.
First of all, you've got to get to know your players. You've got to know what makes them tick. Like what Mish said, you've got to know their values. You've got to know like what they really love about the sport and what made them come into it in the first place. And then just, if they are having those doubts, like this isn't for me, just reflect and go, well, why did you start playing this in the first place? What was your why? I loved being with my mates. Okay, so then you can make it a little bit more social, less structured, like Ant said, and just make it fun. You know, you're always going to give 100% something that you love doing. You know, like again, just echoing what you guys are saying. And for me, I love the fact that what can I learn from my players as well? You know, that's a big thing. Every day is a chance for us to learn and evolve. So don't be too stubborn, I would say, because like Ant said, some coaches do make it about themselves. You've got to have some humility and also allow the players to have ownership to give you some answers, and maybe what you're doing or what they're seeing what you're doing is the reason why. So be open to some constructive criticism for yourself.
Yeah, I can't help but say this too, and I think you kind of both touched on it, but facilitate relationships. I think all of us, when we retire and we look back and you won this and you won that, you think about who you did it with and what relationships and the people that really impacted you. And I think that has to be true for younger girls as well. I know it was for me. My soccer friends were my best friends, and while I maybe more than others loved, being in goal and, this actual soccer part, some of my teammates just loved being there with their friends. So facilitate relationships between between players, between you and the player, like you said, and even help develop a relationship with self. Sport has such a power to impact the rest of your life and set you up for success, even if you don't want to go on to play professional sports. So what can you learn about yourself? How can you learn to work with others, to lead others, to follow? There's so much opportunity in sport. And I think as coaches, we need to facilitate that too, because I think that helps it be a more enjoyable place, but it also sets them up for the rest of their lives.
I'm Anton Blackwood.
I'm Betos.
I'm Ak Lakhani.
This is Between the Posts.